accusations, death threats,
use deadly force,
sexual misdeeds.
Mom on a regular basis.
This is the story of Isom. No, not the International School of Ministry, but the comic by Eric July. Watch as Eric insinuates a ministry is full of fake Christians, but the satanic past of its editors is brought to light. Dick and Vito are accused of false flagging, but is someone else to blame? How does legendary comic artist Ethan Van Sciver respond? On Sifting Through the Trash, with your host, JJ Trujillo. Eric July previously struck Riley with a DMCA, saying that Riley had infringed on his trademark. Now Rippa claims he is wrongfully being sued for the same thing. His comic book, Isom, shares the same name with the International School of Ministry. The Isom organization had a trademark which extended to print products. This would include books, comics, magazines, and other things in that vein. They said they were worried about brand confusion. One of the biggest trademark disputes in comic book history centers around the character Shazam. He was once named Captain Marvel. Later on, Marvel also created their own Captain Marvel and registered the trademark. This was a bit of a battle, but eventually DC decided to sell the rights of the name to Marvel to avoid legal costs and also the risk of losing. Despite the fact that DC had a character created with the name that predated the trademark of Marvel, it seemed to them they would likely lose the lawsuit, and so they eventually settled with Marvel and gave them the rights to the name. Of course, a very big difference here is that only one of these is a comic book company, and the other was a Christian ministry. That being said, the ministry still owned a trademark that extended to print. Have you ever heard of the novel Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim? It was later adapted into an animated film by Don Bluth. Unfortunately, at this time, the word Frisbee was trademarked by the company that invented the Frisbee. To avoid any issues, the film changed the character's name to Mrs. Brisby, and they also changed the title as well. I understand the argument that rippa apologists are making, that these are separate industries, and that Isom is a common name. So how could you trademark it? Considering the precedent of these older companies, and that Eric eventually settled out of court, making several capitulations, it seems he may have also come to the conclusion that a pending court case may not fall in his favor. But considering the precedent of these older companies, and that Eric eventually settled out of court, it seemed also that he maybe had some of these same conclusions, knowing that possibly a court case would not fall in his favor. That's because trademark law is really tight in America. The reason you can't publish a Tarzan or a Zorro story isn't because of copyright law, as those are all in public domain, but because they are registered trademarks. That's why Disney started using Steamboat Willie in their logo. It's a great way to maintain control of your intellectual property. Overall, this whole situation seems very ironic to me. First, Rippa sues someone for trademark violations, then gets served with his own medicine and complains about it. The ministry contacted Eric July, notifying him of a letter they received from someone named Obtuse Gnome, who was asking if the ministry was associated with Eric's comic. Rippa makes it abundantly clear to his fans he believes Dick and Vito orchestrated the whole thing, only to weasel out of that on Nick Rikita's show less than a month later.
What we have right now is a textbook example of gay ops. But a fat person by the name of Vito really ramped up his public hatred of me at the launch of the Rippaverse last year. Since then, very frequently this person has made a point to speak negatively about me and this company. Parties have shown that they have no problem either using the state against us themselves or running op campaigns to maybe push someone else to do it for them. This whole thing was initiated due to trolling. Had they done their diligence, they would know they were relying on false reports to initiate this very conflict.
A few moments later.
Did you accuse him of starting that lawsuit?
No.
Prior to him tweeting that?
No.
No?
No.
You didn't say that he and Vito were behind that?
No. I wouldn't be so foolish as to do that.
Because he never said the exact words, it's Dick and Vito. Honestly, I don't blame him for wanting to blame the two, as they've trolled him tons in the past. Why did he have to lie about thinking it was them on Nick Rikita's show? Even more frustrating is what he said about the Isom ministry. Eric made a video calling the International School of Ministry Christians with parentheses. When you go to the Rippaverse website, you can find this article about the Soska sisters, who were hired for their experience in horror film. I'm not sure if horror is spelled with an H or with a W. Regardless, they were made the editors of the Rippaverse.
The Soska sisters, the Soska twins,
they're my
editors at the Rippaverse. And
and leave their fingerprints on all of the Rippaverse's works, and edit legendary veterans like Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon. The Soska's film history is extremely controversial and dark. They were in films in which tarantulas were sewn inside a woman's genitalia, in which they made out with each other, performed oral on a pregnant lady until she bled like a fountain. Let's take a look at Lucifer Valentine, the director of some of these films, a man whom the Soskas once idolized. Lucifer Valentine had sex with his own sister, who later committed suicide. These two ladies are the ones in charge of every single comic at the Rippaverse, and somehow this ministry is made of fake Christians. Some Rippa fans also claim they've changed.
The Soska sisters have been nothing but awesome to myself, this company, and its fans. I've had those conversations with Jen about reconnecting with God, and those conversations have been amazing. And truly, that's who she answers to, not me or you. You all know how young and dumb I was, so I take exception, again, to people operating as if repentance, forgiveness, and growth aren't a thing.
Yet those previous works are apparently what makes them qualified. And also, this is the logo they used in their recent live-action trailer for the Rippaverse. They were also asking people to support John Waters, the director of the controversial film Pink Flamingos, about a drag queen who is proud to be the filthiest person alive. The film has so many bizarre scenes, like eating dog poop, a scene of simulated bestiality with a chicken, which actually resulted in the real-life death of said chicken, chaining up naked girls and raping them to breed babies, which could be sold to lesbians. There's so much more. It's all so insane. And let's not forget, their sacrilegious self-insert comic, which they were promoting in September of last year. Does that seem like repentance to you? What's really getting to me is how the ministry settled with them. They could get associated with all of this crap. Obviously, most of Rippa's fans are conservative, and they weren't too happy about this. He shot back, saying his books weren't meant to be political.
Nothing to do with the Rippaverse. We don't do that political hive mind thing over here. Even I separate my personal political views from the content of the Rippaverse. Find the irony in an ANCAP creating a superhero cop team like Alpha Corps. Everybody knows to leave it all at the door, and should personal views get in the way of business, they won't be here.
Aside from that, your comic universe is called the Rippaverse, named after your YouTube channel, which is extremely political. Imagine if McDonald's said that they weren't associated with the Ronald McDonald House. That would be absurd. I was also curious what Ethan Van Sciver thought about this whole Trademark lawsuit. There is a narrative that he stabbed Eric in the back. But if we see his thoughts at this time, we can see how he actually treated Eric.
Paul Gibb goes, does Ethan not know his fans anymore? First Barbie, now defending Vito the pedo? Guys, listen, I don't know what you want from me. I just give you the truth as I see it. You can want anything you want. If you want something other than the truth, as I see it, you're going to be disappointed in me all the time. You're going to say, why isn't Ethan giving us the fun, comforting lies that we come to the internet for? You can go elsewhere for those. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give you I could be wrong, but I'm going to give you the truth as I see it. Okay? And that's just the way it is. I don't care who it's about. Yeah, my advice for Eric July, and he's not going to take it, but my advice for him is, you got to settle the case quickly and quietly. And you may have to change the name of your comic book. But it's not the worst thing in the world, you know. Just do it as cheaply as you can.
Some may have felt that Ethan was being disloyal to Eric because he didn't greenlight litigation with the ministry and counseled him to settle out of court. In the end, that's what Eric ended up doing. Others may have felt that Ethan was also being disloyal for not throwing Vito under the bus. But a few months later, Eric would distance himself from the idea that Dick and Vito were the ones who orchestrated the lawsuit. What do you think about all of this? Do you think the ministry should have settled? And do you think these controversies will affect them? Next time, Isom's art is called into question. Eric is hit with a series of heavy accusations.